Welcome to Babble from the Rabble. Quote of the day, observation of the day, bullshit line of the day. So, again, pardon the production value. I'm just doing this on the fly with while I'm working on my camera situation. So, quote of the day. I have a Thomas Jefferson was charged with the writing of the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, which he did. So I have a copy of the first draft, and which he brought to the founders. And it's interesting the changes made from the one man's writing to the group. I mean, not a far stretch, but there are words and aspects of it that seem to get lost when people come together in the collaboration, which is fine. But and what is happening today, and one of the great issues of what's going on today is the idea of what's the job of government. And I'll quote. I've got this site from it's a Michael. What's his name? Pardon me. Michael. It's a wealth of information. He's more of a libertarian. It's a nonpartisan communication, conversation for exercising the First Amendment. And he has a wealth of information regarding an understanding of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. He's more of a libertarian. It's Michael Badnarik, BADNARIK, BADNIRK.org. Have a perusal. Browse. Hey, what browses? I'm half browsing on my my folder side. So, hey, how about you two guys? I'm looking at the screen here. Hey, how about you two guys put your heads together and make an ass of yourselves? I got to take it off the child bone now. I got to put it. Okay, back to business. So here, quote of the day. This is the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, penned by Mr. Thomas Jefferson himself. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for a people to advance from that subordination in which they have hitherto remained, and to assume among the powers of the earth the equal and independent station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the change. We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent, that from that equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these ends, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. I'll read that again. It's interesting how inalienable rights had another aspect. Derived rights, inherent rights, in opposition of divine right. And how station, and we're far down the road with this, but the idea of how equality is inalienable rights is that of nature, right? That is where the equality, the breath we breathe makes us equal. The other aspects, like the idea now of we do live in a stratified economy. So even if one is to respect the play, all the world's a stage, is respect those rules of the game in those areas. Whatever it is, the high salute, or you take the service area up in a certain building to you know, because of money and economy and the way the stratification has developed in the society due to title and pension and all this stuff, right? Which are really of the monarchy. But anyway, so even if we do participate in that, that does not get put into the public sphere. If you're walking in the street, that does not apply. If they have a bill, if someone owns a building, I'm sorry, I'm saying they because it seems like it's become a class thing. People are trying to take those rules of the game of someone who has some kind of hierarchy and put it in the public sphere. That's why we're being told where to walk and stand. And this is the idea of subordination in a divine right. You are all a subordinate to the king, right? Because the king is the king. And that's why separation of church and state exists, because the vicar or whoever the representative of God, because the vicar is only answers to the word to God. He answers to no one else on the earth, right? And so he says, okay, he vouches for the king. He says, no, the king has divine right to rule over the world, right? These are they rule over the world. What with the Declaration of Independence says, no, inalienable rights, inherent, right? That we assume among the powers of earth and the sorry, here we go. So I'll read it again. So think about this. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for a people to advance from the subordination in which they have hitherto remained, at that time it was King George III and the rule of the British Empire or the crown, right? So when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for a people to advance from the subordination in which they have hitherto remained, and to assume among the powers of the earth the equal and independent station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles them, separation of church and state. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the change. This is what they're doing. They're declaring, no, we are not subordinate to any hierarchy. We are not subordinate to the rule of law. When we go into those games, the rules of the game of maybe a corporation, right, or an organization, a private club. You enter that space and you say, yes, I am agreeing to participate, to comply to the rules of the game. If that means I am subordinate to some kind of hierarchy, which may be legitimate. Someone may have knowledge of whatever it may be, and you don't, and this is part of the sharing of that social order. None of my business, really. But that is not to be put into our space, right? So and keep this in mind. Dr. Fauci, and this is not pro-Trump or against Trump. It is, though. It is not even. It really hasn't. I could care less about Dr. Fauci as well, but it's what he is peddling. His new thing is that no, my charge, Dr. Fauci says, is to protect the wealth and health of the United States of America. This says nothing about health and wealth. It is not for the government to protect health and wealth. And as a matter of fact, and I'll take a quote from Mr. Michael. I keep on forgetting his name. Bednarik. Michael Bednarik. Go to bednarik.org. The quote he says is this, and this is really what being vigilant means. If you're in New York City or any other city, the chatter from the digital voice box is be a good citizen, be vigilant. You see something, say something. That is not what being vigilant is meant to be. Being vigilant is this. But I'll give you a quote, and you use your own cognitive processes. We, the people, need to defend those principles. It may come as a shock to you that it's not the Constitution's job to defend you. It's your job to defend the Constitution. That doesn't mean we don't protect each other, but your security comes second. from the protecting of the rights of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. That's it. You cannot take away another individual's rights to secure another individual in the future in any form. And this is not a political stance. This is the way it is. So I'm going to read this. I'll read the second part. We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent, that from that equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these ends, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So what is happening is these, under the guise of protecting others from an invisible threat in the future, right? Pardon me, I'm taking a sip of it. We are unaware, and it's not, you know what? People live simple lives. And the fact of the matter, these things should not be put on them. But here we are. And you have people who are older, who have lived very simple lives, but good people, just, they know what they know. And they put one foot in front of the other. They put a little nest egg. They have a nice house. They're good to their neighbors, right? Maybe not understand as much of the world as, well, it's called nescience, right? Nescience is, I do not know because I am not given the information to know. Ignorance is, I know there is something, but I choose not to look at it. I ignore what the fact is. So that's the case there, right? So these people are frightened, right? And they're so used, especially after 9/11. And this is all related. And here it goes. This is what we need to look at. Preemptive action after 9/11, right? It was an unconstitutional step that we took. And we did it because people were afraid. And those same people who are good people, and we've come to a place where there's a balance, right? Where we have a police force, which is good. We have certain things to protect the people, which is good. But that does never take precedence, or that does never take priority over the inalienable rights of any individual. This is what this is saying, because that misplaced power will always overstep its bounds, always. And if we should be at that line and not sure, because there's nothing written, there's nothing engraved in the ground. When we come up to that line, we should always lean towards the way of inalienable rights, not take away inalienable rights to secure, especially something in the future. And that was the step made in the war on terror. A bad thing happened, and we need to prevent that from happening again. There it is. And even if maybe some of those actions were necessary in the initial crisis, because in any crisis, the whole point is it's a crisis. Everything is upturned. Your normal steps, you need to take a look around. Where are we? What's the story? I got to make sure we're set before we take the next step. And we do that as a group. So that's fair enough to say, okay, we have to put everything on hold. But once you see where everything has fallen down, you say, okay, we can take the next step. We gather ourselves, like the nation, and return to basic principles. But what they had done was, whether intentional or not, they maintained the crisis. And so if you remain in a psyche of perpetual crisis, you're neurotic. That's it. And the war on terror, we said, we're going to fight them over there so they don't come over here. That was a misstep. The Bethlehem Doctrine. Now, this brings us to the Bethlehem. Now, not only is it a misstep, an R of being vigilant, of protecting the Constitution and these inalienable rights, industry outside of our country Because you look right now, the people who are really benefiting from Homeland Security and now this new, what will be a health security, biotech, cybersecurity industry are a lot of foreign nations who, and again, I say this all the time, anytime Israel comes up, only because it gets the well. Anyway, as an American, I should have First Amendment speech anytime. Anyway, I shouldn't have to say a disclaimer, but I'll say I believe in separation of church and state. I believe in anybody who practices Judaism should do freely. It's none of my business. Uh, uh, but I believe Israel is a nation state, is a global player, and do not act from the principles of our Constitution. And this is not only my opinion. I've listened to Netanyahu speak himself, and again, it is not about Israel. It is about me being vigilant and about protecting my individual, right, my inalienable rights, which is my fellow Americans' inalienable rights. We are a group of individuals. We need to be vigilant about protecting that. So it is about someone is stepping over those lines. So this is not, it doesn't matter who they are. It just happens to be that they are corporations, global, and people are making deals for monetary reasons. So here, one of the issues is what Dr. Fauci, right? And this steps on everything that was just said here in Thomas Jefferson's opening first draft of the Declaration of Independence. I'll put a link into the draft we picked. And, it's interesting in the comparison of the two, not to make a judgment of what they did, but really, okay, we read through these things and we have words have changed. People, PR campaigns and political campaigns have used these words to their own advantage. And sometimes we don't even understand, we haven't defined the terms ourselves. We don't really know these words we're using because they've been very clever about it. And it's not a judgment for someone who doesn't know. If we don't know, we don't know. We can't be pushed around. It's okay. It's, this bipartisan stuff has really drove the country into the ground because people aren't thinking for themselves. They get someone, either the leader of the Raccoon Lodge gives them a line, the party line, or their TV show, whether it be left or right. They go to they get the party line, and then they just regurgitate these things in some kind of sports center reality, virtual reality in the political field. But we're not really participating in it. We are the United States of America. So Dr. Fauci, in regards to Trump, President Trump, and again, this is not partisan, and it's not even about Dr. Fauci's, his actions, what he represents, what he says to his charge, he believes, is to protect the wealth and health of the people of the United States of America. No, that's not his. It's none of my health is none of his business. But this is what happened. The health industry has become so powerful and so intertwined in our daily lives, and not just health, the middle management of health. And here I posted, I published an episode the other day with what's her name? A beautiful older woman who happened to be a Holocaust survivor, but made a life, of course, expressing it how it has impacted. She seemed like a very strong woman who has made a life for herself and able to speak for herself in regards to this. And she understands biomedicine, biotech. And so she spoke out about how it is us that what happened with the Nazis was when they made health public. It's about control. Her experience is how the individual must stand and protect their individual rights. She would not. She says as a child, if she did not, she was spoken as a child. And something, even her leaving the occupation she was subjected to, in her travels, boats were going to Israel, and um, she as a young girl, they were putting all the children on one boat, and then and she happened to be traveling with the family to get to the boats. And she said she just put up a stink, and she said now should be seen as being disobedient. But what happened was all those children died, and she said my standing as a child and refusing to get on that boat saved her life. It is no one we we are going down a road where we're just following blindly the orders of a guy with a white coat. My body is my body. They've cultivated this kind of it's all and I'm sorry, it's a lot of it's related to the pension system. And the pension system is really pension and title were tools of the crown. And I'm not saying people have to leave this. I'm not saying it's a total bad thing, but I'm saying do not put they've misused those, and they're subjecting the country to the ills of those choices. Example, 9/11, right? In a war, okay, yes, we will write debt because we need it for this war. But now, Homeland Security, last year was $51 billion of money we do not have. $51 billion created into debt, which the children being born now are going to have to pay. You're subjugating these children into indentured servitude. That's what it is. To protect people from an invisible threat that may happen in the future, when in fact we could protect ourselves no matter what. And never forget, the guy that comes to you, if you have a store, right? And believe me, the fact of the matter is, it's not. The idea of corruption is made by the people who will put in the white lines on the field, who goes in and out of bounds, right? The rules of the game. But there are basic principles of natural law, as suggested by Thomas Jefferson here, that you do not trespass against. So if people are going in and out of bounds playing the game, all right, they'll work it out. This is going to another place. This is about authoritarianism, right? This is about there's no move room. No, okay. It's a lot of information, because the point is, for me, and I got off track of this, but truth today has nothing to do about trying to call people out on their wrong or ill doings, or even a person. It's placing principles before personality for myself. For me to engage in the world in a coherent manner means that the information I take in, my knucklehead, has to be free, has to be come in through without being filtered with my own misplaced ideas, my own misplaced judgments. I have to take the information in as clearly as possible, right? And then hopefully, if I process it, I can when I take action in the world, it'll be honest, which just means it is in accord with the natural laws of the area I am in. It's really that simple. It has nothing to do with me trying to call people out on their ills. We just happen to be at a place in our society where any understanding of that idea of honesty is out the window. Because that's what the basic principles of the Declaration of Independence are. They're principles rooted in the natural law of human nature. Those rules that govern us as human beings, not the rule of the rules of the game. They want to see people who benefited from the inalienable rights of freedom and the protections of the Constitution in developments of society created sectors that had, okay, we have to come with, there are going to be rules for us to maintain. It's like, someone goes into an area. All right, a leader amongst equals says, okay, folks, we're going to have this organized so people aren't talking over each other. So we have a goal we want to meet here. We can all work here together. So it's not just craziness. That's just reasonable and responsible. So there's rules of that area that come to order, right? Now, people become very successful. Corporations have their own rule of law. Down the line, people don't realize a corporation never had the rights of human beings. A corporation was a charter. So somewhere along the line, related to the 13th Amendment and slavery, smart lawyers, and fair play to them, came up with the idea of how can we make this work for us? And through that, corporations were given the right of persons to own property. And now today you go through Citizens United, where the corporations as a citizen created a group, and then you have ALEC. So now these and they've totally subverted the leverages of our government, because these people that were really citizens, but are really money concentrations of wealth under these different names, were able to infuse this money into our checks and balance system, separation of power system, and put an interface between the people and the people who are supposed to be the servants. And now, look, I'm talking to you through this thing. Here's another device that is going to get in between us and the people who are supposed to be our public servants. And this device here I'm talking to you, it is a privately owned company. How many different companies? The computer I'm talking, and this is just the facts of the situation. There's Wi-Fi running this. That's a corporation. All the people involved with that. This computer here, corporate. These are private interests that are in between, a toll between me speaking to you, between us engaging in the natural world. It is not the government's place to protect my health. That's it. And the idea of protecting wealth, that is not the government's place to protect anybody's wealth. See, but the idea is that there has been a misplacement of understanding of what the United States of America is. And I'm going on a bit, but I'll go on a little further if anybody put this on. Now, here's one of the areas where public relations and what we were sold that took us away from understanding another interface that was put in front of us, but of an idea, a dialectic. They call it Hegelian dialectic, where you're presented two opposing arguments, which takes you away from maybe what's back here, or maybe what is necessary to be looked at, or what the principle is. And what it is capitalism, country and God capitalism against Satan worshiping communists, right? I'm adding a few. Now, I'm no supporter of communism, and capitalism has had its benefits for the United States of America. But the United States of America is a constitutional republic. And the economy was initially just a component of our country, right? And actually, it was just a mode of how we going to work together. Oh, money. Okay. You do the service, I can pay you. I have a farm, I do this, blah, 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 right? We don't understand the history of our own commerce. So what has happened is the economy, which was supposed to be a component of a healthy society, which serves the society so they can work together, right? And winners and losers and all that stuff that happens in, the world. It's not saying, the losers don't want to play the game. No, games are fine. Go play your games, but you don't. What has happened was global players through Wall Street and have taken over those levers, and they have put the economy at the center of the society, in which the society serves the economy, right? And how is this reinforced? Now, if you do that, you have to maintain that, right? And how do you maintain that? You have people fight for it or against it, but they don't really understand what they're fighting for. So free markets, well, like I didn't understand this, and people don't understand this because we're told capitalism is a part of free markets. No, it's not. Capitalism is a centralized form of economy, which we have, that's anchored in the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, in case you didn't know. The Federal Reserve Act had to be written for us, we the people, to hand over our rights to coin and coin money to a private bank. Huge problem. It's been a huge problem. And now they've decided we're going to go digital and go global. And the threat is now global. So what we forget is that we are unique. Not that we're special, shiny snowflakes. No, we are unique in that we declared our inalienable rights endowed by the Creator. We declared our freedom. All man is created equal because we are given the breath of God, whatever that is. Life makes us equal, right? And no title or divine right, whether it's placed from another country, someone's wearing a crown there, coming here, can take that away. You respect that if someone has that and owns a mansion. You say, okay, well, they own that. That's their show. But they're placing that on. I'm repeating myself here. So this is where we're at. I got off track, so pardon me. So now, so capitalism, right, is we consider the United States of America a capitalist country. It's not the case. It's a choice that was made. And if we got rid of that, it doesn't mean it would be communism or socialism. As a matter of fact, the people that scream more about socialism are the most socialists are the biggest socialists in the country. Like in New York City, right? You have the civil servants. All they do is say, socialist, goddamn socialist, because they think welfare is socialism. That's not what people don't understand the words they're using. Civil servants, which is necessary in a place like New York City, right? You say the fire department. There was a time where it was privatized, and they would be fighting over. You'll see the movie Gangs in New York, and it's a good example of how people would leverage. How someone's house is on fire, they're fighting over who's going to get the job, and they let it burn. So making it a public service, maybe that's changed now, is how it operates in a way that serves the public. Sanitation, right? These kind of things. But it's all paid for by taxes, right? It's all taken by the local people, right? The people who work for those public agencies, they don't own any of the property. They don't own any of the trucks. So it's a form of socialism that works. This isn't, so it's not anti or pro socialism. So no, there was an aspect of something that we used, right? Because we are a constitutional republic, free markets, right? So free markets that's what deregulations are. We have used the deregulation to solidify the centralization of capital. And what capitalism is the accumulation, right, of capital, of money, with the intent to leverage. Communism is a centralization of power. Well, look at China. Or you say the Soviet Union. So, and what people saying now this is the new chatter, right? Hunter Biden is looking, and Joe Biden are looking to destroy the United States of America because of their relationship with China. Really? This just started. No, it was if anything, it was Wall Street, the banking industry, global money interests that see, and this is the model, right? Global money interests It's like a corporation, right? I'm a shareholder. I own the corporation, right? I hire middle management. I hired a middle management to run the workforce, right? If you're a global player, right, and you don't see nations, you see nations as your satellite, almost like your your satellite companies. If you're a global corporation, you have no border. You're you're the say you want to be the global corporation. So then you're looking at Africa as okay, this is part of the corporation. This is a branch of the corporation. So all over the world. So they're looking at the United States as no, the freedom is going to be you're going to be a subordinate again. You're going to be no longer free. You're going to be part of the new global corporation. So now, little by little, they've been undermining all of our free because that's why it's like this is what the thing with the mask, right? I'm jumping around, but this is all related. I have a friend, and she was a nurse, and she didn't. They were mandating flu shots, which should have never happened. It's a form of rape. You cannot tell somebody you're going to take the body is their property. You take a metal implement, you stick it in, uh, you stick it in their body. Now use your own imagination of how all of this was related to rape, and you put a fluid in their body, right? That you don't know where it's from, because that's the fact. You may say, "Oh, well, we know this is a reputable company, and they worked with." You don't know where their business practices is. Maybe one week they had a guy that went off the fucking rails and got a shipment of this stuff in from China to make a few dollars. How do you know where this stuff's coming from? So she, at the time, refused. She said, "No, I'm not taking a flu shot, I believe it was." Why is it? Because you can get people sick because it was a business choice. She said, "Well, we don't want you to wear a mask." Because she said, "You know what? I won't fight it. I'll wear the mask." Right. So now what's happening? They're taking the public spaces as if you're an employee. No, you're going to wear a mask because you're a subordinate. It's this is just this is this is the actions for someone to say stand over there. That's it. That is unnatural. It is unnatural. The crisis is over. The pandemic is over. Even if it was a pandemic, they still do not have the right. In Pennsylvania, they've set precedents already. A judge in Pennsylvania said no, even with an executive order, does not give you the right to take away inalienable rights. Again, in a crisis, it makes absolute sense. Stop what we're doing. We have to see what the situation is so no one gets hurt here. But that is not, but they use the crisis to say, okay, well, the whole world has to change now. Sure. Because the fact that none of the numbers add up. And the fact that we have people of wealth coming into the country that aren't used to living by our rule, well, not our rules, but by our constitutional rights. They're used to living in their countries in which they are elite, whether it be kingdoms, whether it be areas that are new who run new apartheid states in the world. So they're used to degrading and being having a standard in which they are a better class of human being than the people they live next to, in which they subjugate on a daily basis. So those people with those kind of attitudes are going to bring that to our country. This is what the problem is. And some of those nations are at the forefront of some of these cybersecurity companies. So they're going to use this preemptive. And okay, now here's preemptive action. Back to 9/11, right? And preemptive action. Richard Pearl and all these guys saying, okay, if there's a guy around the corner with a gun, it's our responsibility to stop him, right? But that nice little allegory, that little story, goes against everything the Nuremberg trial and a constitutional principle, because you don't know if the information you have about that guy around the corner is actually legit, or that the guy around the corner isn't being hired by the guy that wants us to go around the corner, right? It's like, again, the guy, you have a storefront window, and Richard Perlman had a lot of connections with Israel. And again, this is not, I have nothing against Judaism. Israel is a state, and it's not even about Israel, but at the corporations. Because here's something you need to know as well: every Israeli serves in the military, and they have an elite intelligence uh, agency called the 8200, and some of the top hackers in the world, and they're at the forefront. Netanyahu said, I think they're like second in the world for cybersecurities. So now the 8200, once they finish their service, they are the CEOs and the head of all of these tech companies in Israel and in New York City. I think there's 500, uh, if I got the numbers right, in New York City. And again, fair play to you, but this is the United States of America. Once you trespass against mine. So what they're doing is they're trying to create these preemptive markets to make money. Now it's not terrorism. Homeland Security is totally unconstitutional, and now they're putting it into preemptive health securities, where they want. And another issue you have to understand too is in Israel, Gaza is an apartheid state, whether you understand it or not. The fact that it's in, we weren't given this information. Look at Abby Martin's work. I'm going on here a bit, but Abby Martin is an independent journalist. Again, I'm not bipartisan. I would ask you just to hear the information. Just put it aside for a second, because in the United States of America, we're supposed to have the First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech. Abby Martin was invited in Georgetown. It wasn't Georgetown University, but it was a university in Georgetown. She was invited to give a lecture regarding journalism. So when she was there, one of the representatives of the university asked her to sign an oath. And she asked, in regards to what? She says, well, we'd like you not to speak about Israel. And she said, well, I was invited here. It's okay. I'm here to speak about journalism today. He said, no, we would like you to sign an oath to never speak about Israel. And she said, I can't do that. I'm a journalist. And there's an ongoing lawsuit. And in that ongoing lawsuit, what they have found out in Georgia, the governor, what they had going on in Georgia was they had all the independent construction contractors. I think it was $5,000 or better, which is they would have to sign this very oath that they should not speak about Israel. Now, why in the world in the United States of America are you asking people to sign over the First Amendment right to not speak about another country, another nation? So, one, why in the world are we taking away our constitutional rights for a foreign land? And what are they doing? So now you look at here, what's going on. These are bad players. These people are not aligning with our principles, and they're trying to implement this authority. They may be used to it over there, and it's not just Israel. It is an elite class. You have people who live in Saudi Arabia. They live certain way. There's people who live around the world who wield power and wealth that we fought against. King George III, the British Empire, those people still exist in the world. We were unique that we were the United States of America. The rest of the world was still living under that subjugation to a degree. I mean, look at Australia now. Queensland, right? Australia's in total lockdown. Look at China. Wuhan, China is a technocracy, is under 24-hour surveillance, right? Social credit score, where you are giving everything is like a Wi-Fi, an internet, everything means like everything you do is connected to decentralized, right? Capitalism, socialism, communism, centralized economic distribution, right? Technocracy is the same thing, centralized, but it's through technology, right? And pseudoscience, not real science, pseudoscience. Pseudoscience gets people into the compliance. So in Wuhan, China now, everything is done through the devices they have, and they are given or denied access regarding on it. Be a good citizen? Are they behaving properly according to Big Daddy, Big Brother, whoever? That's not freedom. Not only that, they're being punished for those who are dissenting. And it's happening here. So anyway, because the technology may be hanging up in Wuhan, China, but they're putting it right outside your window right now today. And if you think they're going to stop with taking away your First Amendment, in Australia, on a global chat, and one of the gentlemen was an independent media um, resource, thank God, right? Said that, thank goodness, that said that in Australia they have such, in some areas it's such a lockdown that they have the perimeters set already around your home, and that a pregnant woman walked outside the chalk on the field, and a grown man, a police officer, tackled her. So anyway, that's my observation. I'm going over 45 minutes, and again, um, pardon the I typed out the quote so you could look at it yourself. I'll put a link um, to Mr. Nardic. I keep on getting his name wrong. Pardon me. But yeah, and I'll put up the Declaration of Independence as well. So it is my responsibility to protect the Constitution, because the Constitution is us, we the people, right? And this is now go. This is what is the issue with essential workers. Why do we have to put a label on workers? Because lines are being divided, right? Because what they're doing is they are making this a national socialist country. If you write $51 billion of debt, that's a socialist maneuver, because you have taxpayers, not even today, but you are enlisting taxpayers of the future to pay the pensions and the health care of all these people who are working for Homeland Security. They're not even out of school yet. That's socialism. That's communism. That's just 1 year. And they're establishing a rule of law, and it's supposed to be no. It's people who are speaking out about this, because other people, and it's not a condemnation. People have go into the system from different places, and have only available resources. And so, some people may get a job and an opportunity. Geez, I'm really grateful to have this, and just do their job, do what they have to take care of their family, which is fine. But that is not what the United States of America is about. That is a leveraging mechanism. And we need those people not to judge each other, not to call each other's names, not to say we're stupid, not to say whatever, to just be aware. Because the truth of the matter is, the implications is this is not going to stop here. In Nazi Germany, there were men who would get up in the morning, wives would make coffee with the family, and they'd have breakfast with their family, have a cup of tea, say goodbye to the son, make sure wife would come over and make sure his suit was on, his hat. He'd walk out maybe with his lunchbox and go, and maybe he was a train conductor or he worked on a train. And when he got to work, they went through the whole process of punching in and say, what are the details for today? You're going to have locomotive 9, and all these details. Got on a train, and they were transporting humans to camps where they were murdered. Now, that person was probably in the same climatization. He's not aware. This is just someone that Germany went through a tragic economic depression after World War I, and these things were leveraged against these people. So it's not even saying that it's not just. It's like people fall into these things. I have to feed my family, so we should not be allowing our government to comply or be used by corporations, global players that are leveraging the people within our workforce to work against their own inalienable rights and constitutional rights. It's an assault. And to even say of mandating, taking a metal implement and force it in someone's body is preemptive rape. So my suggestion is, that's why I'm putting up the Declaration of Independence, because we are not, we are it, right? We are not of a rule of law. We are a Declaration of Independence, Constitution, which it describes. Constitution is to protect the rights of individuals. We are a group of individuals. Rule of law is written later, derived from those principles. So that's why at the moment these executive orders are being made without any legislative. They're coming from guidelines from the WHO and the CDC, but because of a crisis, the dictator at the moment, whoever it may be, that's what happens when, because it's like we're at a time of war. We're not at war. This is not a crisis. They're using these tools of leverage. So anyway, it is not the government's responsibility to protect you. We put things together like the police and the military, so we have that. But it's not their job. We the people need to wake up. This is not about black people, white people, movements, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. No, this is about inalienable rights, basic principles, about the Declaration of Independence, in which we declare that all men are created equal before they step into the economic arena. That divine right is a falseness. The rule of law of divine right is something that is abhorrent to freedom. So I guess like this has been Truth Today. Quote of the day, observation of the day, bullshit line of the day. What's a bullshit line? Bullshit line is Dr. Fauci, that the goal of government is to protect wealth and health. Or maybe the goal of government is to protect health and wealth. That is the bullshit line of the day. Okay, take care. See you next time.